howdy, and welcome to Mo's World, the baseball podcast. Yep, another baseball podcast. Here we talk about baseball like a few friends sitting at the bar. Awesome. We're excited to bring you our latest episode. If you enjoy the podcast, spread the word to your friends. In episode 33 in season 2, today we're going to update you on our ongoing theme of this season, the Imploding Bullpens. Here we are entering the final month of the season. Wow, what a train wreck this year has been for practically every team's bullpen. We started talking about this in episode 16 in May. The trend, if you can call it that, has continued and actually gotten worse. Why? Lack of starter depth has made all bullpens feeling taxed this year. Let's look back to early May to see if we've progressed. Now, the top 5 teams in May that got the most out of their starters were the Kansas City Royals, the Boston Red Sox, the Washington Nationals, the San Francisco Giants, and the Cincinnati Reds. The Royals led with getting 5.67 innings per starter. The Red Sox were 5.46, and the Reds followed it up at 5.41. Now, the bottom 5 teams, as far as innings per starter, were the Los Angeles Dodgers at only 4.5 innings per starter. And they were followed by the Marlins, the Rockies, the White Sox, and the Orioles. Now, all those teams, the Marlins, Rockies, White Sox, and Orioles, struggled with putting any kind of win together in the first half of the season. The Dodgers, surprisingly on this list, goes to show you how much depth they have, because they were still hanging in there and winning in spite of their starters. So, how has it progressed as we're entering September? What are the top 5 teams now? Nothing like it was. We've got the Philadelphia Phillies leading at 5.72 innings per starter. The Seattle Mariners at 5.48. The Houston Astros at 5.43. The Diamondbacks with 5.45, and the Red Sox, surprisingly, at 5.39 innings per starter. Now, all those teams, they're in it, right? They're all in the playoff hunt, and some of them have made a drastic change. The bottom 5 teams, right now, the Chicago White Sox at only 4.75 innings per starter. I think that can be based on that they're getting bombed and they need to take those pitches out. The Dodgers, number 2 on the list, all friggin' year long, only 4.76 innings per starter. They can't find a starter to go past 5. The Rockies, the Minnesota Twins, and the Mets are now on this list. With the problems that they're having, the Mets are only getting 5 innings per starter. But wow, look at the improvement the Phillies have made. Currently leading the majors, and their starters are going the deepest into games. They've taken control of the division, even though they have a shaky bullpen. They may be vulnerable now without Zach Wheeler, as his absence could be costly. Looking at the Mariners, they've taken advantage of better starting pitching to improve themselves. Strange team, the Mariners, though. Yeah, I just don't get them. Now, for the 2 previous bottom 5 teams, hey, they've made major improvements. The Miami Marlins were getting only 4.69 innings per starter with a 6.56 ERA. You know, right now they're at 5.02 innings per starter with a 4.91 ERA. I think you can base that predominantly on the improvement of Sandy Alcantara, who's pitching much better in the second half. And looking at the Baltimore Orioles, they were only getting 4.97 innings per starter with a 5.75 ERA. Holy shit, they really put themselves in a hole March, April, and May. Because, you know, now they're getting 5.16 innings per starter, and their ERA is down to 4.81. So big improvement. What about the teams with the best ERA since May? Well, that would be the Mets. The Mets were in May at 2.80 ERA. The Texas Rangers, the Kansas City Royals, the Detroit Tigers, and the Minnesota Twins. Those are all top performing team ERA back in May. And pretty amazing how that has changed, The bottom 5 team ERAs, you can pretty much guess this, right? The Marlins at 6.56, the Rockies 6.53, the Orioles, the Cleveland Guardians, and surprisingly, the Toronto Blue Jays were getting some real shitty pitching back in May, but they've improved that. The top 5 teams in ERA right now, surprisingly, wow, we got the Texas Rangers with a 3.30 ERA, the Milwaukee Brewers with a 3.48 ERA, the Phillies with a 3.49, and here you go. You got the Kansas City Royals at 3.70 and the New York Yankees at 3.70. Wow. Surprising, right? Back in May, we had the Detroit Tigers and the Minnesota Twins with a starting staff of 4th and 5th best in the league. Now, the Twins have imploded, but the Tigers are not as dominant as early in the season, and they're kind of struggling of late. And the reason I keep harping on the Kansas City Royals to still be able to make a late charge is their starters. If only they could hit. Another New York team is surprisingly 5th in starter length, the Yankees. This is amazing, since this team is almost the poster child for being close or leading in the 5th through 7th innings, then imploding at the end of the game with an erratic bullpen. As far as the bottom 5, well, we've got the Rockies at 6.59 ERA. They've sucked all year long. The Washington Nationals with a 5.30 ERA. The Marlins still pretty bad at 4.91 ERA. The A's at a 4.88, and the Orioles at 4.81 ERA. So it's no real surprise on the teams in the bottom 5. The Orioles have made improvements from May, but it is the classic case of too little too late. So, who's blowing the most saves currently? Well, on a personal level, Ryan Helsley seems to be pretty consistent in this terrible year as he maintains the lead of blown saves, leading the major leagues with 9 blown saves so far this season. Reality really hits when you look at this list. But remember, a blown save is only part of the shitty bullpens we seem to have this year. Many teams are blowing games before it is in a save situation. Yes, losing a 3-2 lead in the 6th inning as it turns into a 9-4 loss in the late innings. That is the typical loss this year. And it's all due to the taxing of bullpens and the taking, that starters are not going past 6 innings. So who are the top 10 in blown saves right now? Well, we got the leaders. The Angels with 27 blown saves. The Rangers with 24. The Red Sox, Diamondback, and Mets tied with 22. The Rays at 21. The Rockies and Pirates and Mariners and Dodgers all tied with 20 blown saves. Now going right down to the bottom, the Astros have only blown 12 saves, and I don't think that includes this week. But still, only the Astros and Brewers are the leaders on the bottom. And they're not blowing many games, and that's why they're still in it, Seeing this list, sometimes these teams have struggled all season long. Some of them trying to get a quality start and trying to hang on to a win. Surprisingly, the Dodgers lead this list of teams, followed by many playoff potential ones. I find it quite interesting that the teams that are staying competitive this year are not blowing games late. Like I said, teams like the Astros, Brewers, Cubs, Padres, and Royals. That is why you have to watch for a possible hot streak from any of these teams. That could propel them into the team entering the playoffs. But even that is misleading. Since the All-Star break, teams like the Tigers, Padres, and Orioles are blowing games more than at any time this season. No one seems to be immune from this disease. As far as the blown save status, will one of these teams beat the 2019 record set by the Baltimore Orioles? 34 is the record for blown saves. So let's stay tuned. Now, looking at the blown games just this week. This podcast was in post-production on Wednesday, but look what has transpired just this week. On Monday, September 1st, we had the Braves versus Cubs. Braves led 5-2 after 5, and poof, the bullpen blows the game as they lost 7-6. The same day, the Astros playing the Angels. Angels are tied with the Astros 3-3 after 4 innings. Then the Angels blow the game 8-3. Phillies versus Brewers. Brewers led 5-3 after 5. Then their bullpen blew the game 10-8 in a rare loss. The Rangers versus the Diamondbacks tied at 3-3 after 5. Then the Diamondbacks blow the game 7-5. The next day, Tuesday, September 2nd, we had 6 teams that blew a lead. Mets versus Tigers. We got a good 2-2 game going after 6. Then the Tigers bullpen blows up and the Mets take the lead and win the game 12-5. Pirates versus Dodgers. 4-4 after 5 innings. Oh, then what happens? The Dodgers bullpen blows up and loses the game 9-7. Mariners versus Rays. 3-2 after 5. Then the Mariners bullpen blows up and loses the game 6-5. Now how's this one? This one is like typical, right? Angels versus Royals. 1-0 Royals lead after 5 innings. Then the Royals bullpen gives up 5 runs and a 5-1 loss. White Sox versus Twins. 3-3 after 3. Then the Twins bullpen, they didn't even show up. They gave out 9 runs after 5 and a 12-3 loss. And last but not least, on the same day, the 6th blown game, the Diamondbacks versus the Rangers. Close contested game, 2-0 Rangers lead after 5. Then the Rangers bullpen gives it all out and they give up 5 runs and lose 5-3 in the final. 10 games in 2 days that involved imploding bullpens. And it's not getting any better. Teams are who they are at this point. Not too often does a team redefine themselves in the final month of the season to be the team in the playoffs. I'm going to say it again, though. The team with the best starters moving into the playoffs will win the World Series this year. And how many World Series of late? And of late, I'm going to go back 25 years. That starting pitching has been the depth and winning aspect of that team. And recently as 2021, the World Series winner, the Atlanta Braves, they relied heavily on Max Fried, Charlie Morton, and Ian Anderson, and they came through and producing a World Series win. In 2014, we had the San Francisco Giants winning, and Madison Bumgarner was introduced as a one-man show. In 2010, the same San Francisco Giants produced the World Series winning team, and their key pitchers were Tim Lincecum and Matt Cain. And all the way back, which I consider the team that we're talking about as far as riding pitches, they rode the most dominant 2 pitches to a World Series win, the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2001. And they rode Curt Schilling and Randy Johnson. They were the dominant pitching of those two to get a World Series win. So is there a team like that this year maybe? Well, who knows? Could the Red Sox with Garrett Crochet and Brian Bello lead the team in the playoffs? What about the current hot duo of Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez of the Houston Astros? Could the Yankees combo of Carlos Rodon and Max Fried, as both have a chance at 20 wins this year? What about Seattle with Brian Wu and Luis Castillo? Could Freddie Peralta be a one-man show in Milwaukee? You never know. With Zach Wheeler being out, could Jesus Luzardo and Christopher Sanchez step up to lead the Phillies? These are questions that remain, but it does seem a no-brainer in this year having the most inconsistent bullpens. Teams that have struggled all year with the imploding bullpen will more than likely sizzle out in the playoffs. For this reason alone, I'm going to go out there and say the Los Angeles Dodgers will lose in round one or not make it to the World Series to defend their title. They've struggled all season long with starting pitching and relievers. If this season sucked for your team blowing games after the starter left, pitching 5 1/3 innings, all I can say is root for the team winning the World Series this year to do it with their starters going 7+ innings. That is what I'm rooting for. 7+. I think today is a wrap. Thank you for joining us for the 33rd episode of Season 2 of Mo's World, the baseball podcast. Our regular schedule for new episodes is every Friday, with each episode lasting approximately 20 minutes. We appreciate your support and encourage you to share the podcast with your friends. Our next podcast will be Friday, September 12th. We look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, ask yourself, whose world is it? It's Mo's World.